Interface Video presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, and Lancaster Fairfield Community Action Recycling and Litter Prevention.
Welcome to Fairfield Today, or at least the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities edition of Fairfield Today. My guests today are Jody Blaze, who is our Director of Children's Services and also the Principal at Forest Road School, and Megan Worthington, who is my hero. I always wanted to say that. Have you seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Megan Worthington, you're my hero.
Not for a long time.
Megan is a speech therapist with our preschool students at Forest Road School, and she also works now with our adults at the Opportunity Center, which is where we're taping this episode. But Megan is the education hero in this year's Red Cross Heroes Awards program. We're very proud of that. And I know Jody is as well. And you're very humble about it, aren't you?
Yes, very. It was very shocking, but I'm happy to accept the award because it gives our agency such great recognition because they've done so much for these kids. And I just know that I couldn't do what I do without my director and my team of awesome therapists, my OT and PT and my other speech therapist, and so.
Well, and of course the teachers at school,
absolutely.
And the aides, and the kids themselves, and of course the kids' parents.
It's amazing how much we work together to put this initiative in place, and how we work every day to keep it going.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, listen. Let's start with having you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up. So let's start there. You're a Fairfield Union graduate? Or?
I graduated from Fairfield Union High School, born and raised on Coon Path Road, and I still live there. I don't think I'll ever leave. I live in on our family farm that I absolutely love with my 3 children, my husband, and I'm fortunate to live next door to my parents, and my grandmothers are very close in proximity, and my brothers and their families.
Okay, great.
So I'm very drawn to this area.
Okay. Now, speaking of the word drawn, what drew you to go into speech therapy?
I was contemplating a profession in the medical field because my mother is a nurse.
I know.
And I went into...
She's my nurse, actually.
She's your nurse.
The doctor that I go to.
I started in pharmacy school, but just knew it wasn't quite right for me. I needed a little more communication with a diverse population, and actually a good family friend recommended speech therapy. And so I completed my undergrad at the University of Kentucky and was really anxious to get closer to home, so I went to grad school at Ohio State. Had a wonderful experience there and still keep in touch with many of my colleagues. In fact, one of my grad school friends is now our representative for the communication device company that we're working very closely with.
Okay.
So
we'll get to that here in a few minutes. I got to think that if I went to school in Lexington, I would probably never want to leave. I may go on and get a doctorate and then apply to the university to teach.
Lexington is a beautiful city, a fun city, but the reason I loved Lexington was because the people were so friendly. It's just southern enough that there's a real sense of warmth.
I know exactly what you mean. My wife went to Eastern Kentucky, so she had spent a lot of time. In fact, she did her student teaching right near Lexington. Mm-hmm. So, well, we're digressing a little bit. So then when you came back here, how did your career kind of unfold?
I actually stayed in Columbus and decided to work in some of the suburban schools. But I decided that I wanted to get a little closer to home after I got married, so I started at the Educational Service Center. And at that time, Jody was in charge of the preschool, where we've actually stayed in touch pretty much the last 13 years.
Every time I heard about a job opening, I'd call Megan and say, where are you? What are you thinking?
Well, let's bring you into the conversation. It worked out perfectly. You began your career as a speech therapist,
Yes.
and then so you've always been involved. Now, is it still considered speech therapy and audiology, or is it just speech therapy, or is it more specialized?
No, it's still speech therapy.
Okay.
We have a fancy moniker, speech language pathologist,
Okay.
which sounds like we deal with dead people, but it is just the agreed upon term. But we answer to anything: peach teacher, speech therapist,
Okay.
Mrs. Tuntert.
Okay. I went to school in a small school in Pennsylvania that was pretty well known for its program, and several of the high school friends that I had that went to college together are now speech therapists. One's in Phoenix, one's in South Florida.
Wow.
Great.
And now with the magic of Facebook, we've kind of reconnected after 25 years of not talking to one another. So now
That's great.
we still don't talk to one another. We just type to one another. So.
That's great.
But it is kind of cool. As we kind of progress into this conversation, why don't you tell me a little bit about how the field has changed and what it was like when you were working with students, and now we can contrast that with and compare it, because there are probably some similarities, but there are probably a lot of new things that are going on.
Right. I will tell you that I'm going to date myself because I actually started practicing in 1979. And those were the years when you didn't have to do a 5 or 6 year program and graduate with your master's. You could graduate with a bachelor's, pursue an additional degree later. I began in Amanda Clear Creek, and I'm originally from Northeast Ohio, and loved the feeling that I got from that school. I had a caseload of 80 students from preschool to 12th grade, served both buildings in the district. That was not unusual for most practicing school speech language pathologists, was to cover a huge area and not have a lot of support. One of the things that we did through the Educational Service Center, as I was the preschool director, I also supervised the speech language pathologist, because there needs to be a sense of communication. And I think that's one of the things that we truly embrace in the setting that we are now, is that we have this team spirit. There's not only a couple of speech therapists who can really talk turkey when it comes to communication, but OTs and PTs and educators who kind of all bring the pieces together. I think we used to feel a little bit more isolated. You'd have your speech groups, and there was not as much support for inclusion of students. Most of what we did was pull out, and we did not have access to the technology that we have today. Certainly smart boards were not even in the picture. We probably, when we did have cell phones, had them like this, so there was no, other than email, there was no Skyping or
Right.
other ways to handle things. So the technology itself that we've seen in all of our lives has really impacted our field as well, and our ability to communicate with each other and to do things for kids.
Okay. Now, one of the primary reasons that you were nominated for this award was your commitment to the students and to getting the kind of technology into their classrooms that they were having a little bit of trouble accessing. Talk a little bit about some of the technology that's out there, first of all. Let's just to kind of describe the devices and what they're able to do for a student.
Okay. The best way to describe the devices is they're almost small computers that are loaded with a very researched, very specific language program. And if to visualize it, it would be pictures with the written word in different setups that would allow a touch activation of the word. We also have companies in which you can use a switch, which is just a button with the head to activate the words. We're currently working with a company where you simply look at the picture, the client looks at the picture, and the word can be activated. A mouse on the student or client's forehead to activate the picture.
Now, do you have that technology at the school yet, or are you still?
We should have it within the next 2 weeks. We're currently in the process of a very large and specific order. Money from the Fairfield Foundation, as well as Run for the Rose. We're using that money to kind of beef up and have a more diverse group of devices. We have one company, Dynavox, in the classrooms, and we knew that we needed to get a couple more companies, a couple different styles, a couple different language systems, and the head mouse and the eye gaze, those are called access methods, because many of our students, due to their physical impairments, they do not have the ability to simply touch a computer to talk. That's too difficult.
Right.
So I think what we've learned this past year is that we have to be very thoughtful in our purchases. We've done immense research. I am very good friends with company reps because I want to know exactly what they have to offer. I want to know what we're purchasing. And we're going to have these devices for a long time because we're going to have them in the building so that we can teach children to use the devices, and then we can ask funding sources such as private insurance or Medicaid to purchase one for their personal use. And I want to get it right. I want to pick the right device, and I want them to be successful, and they have to be taught to use these devices. So there are probably 4 main companies that we work with. They've been in our facility. They've brought all of their gear. We try everything with the kids. We have, kids, we almost have a list of who's next. Who do we want to practice more with, who is ready to get a device. A lot of the kids, we need a lot of time, and we know we have to practice some other things first. We still have lower technology things like pictures or simple buttons that say 1 or 2 words. The goal is to really increase that high-tech piece, and we're excited.
And you have kids that, and I use the word very often, it's in our latest newsletter, find their voice. You're helping kids to find their voice. In many cases, you have kids who are working, especially the younger ones that you're working with now, as well as some of the older kids that Rachel, the speech therapist who is working with the older kids in our school, they maybe have never spoken before, or had no way of communicating other than just facial expressions, or if you're working with them enough and you can see eye movements and tell if they make certain sounds, what they need and what they want. But now you're giving them the voice to actually use words. And as you said, in some, it's kids are using single words where they'll press the iPad screen for balloon, and you can start playing with a balloon, for example. But then you have other kids that will go through a series.
They're building sentences. And actually sharing their thoughts and writing their words. And I think, John, really, as the preschool therapist, I know how important it is to get language in those early years. I don't want to wait and say, you know what, someone in kindergarten or first grade will get this child a device, or I'm going to give it another year and see if they talk. We don't have the time. There's a window of language development. We have to get something in their hands. It doesn't mean that they're not going to talk later. It means, let me give you something now, so that you're not frustrated, so that you can participate in circle time, so you can tell your mom your tummy hurts. Let me give you something now. In school age, we're finding that, I don't know if you can picture this, but when I first started, a certain student would just kind of walk up to his friends and get really close, like he wanted to say something. I just kept thinking, he wants to say good morning, or he wants to say, guess what I did over the weekend? And he loves John Deere tractors, and I thought, he probably wants to say, hey, I got to ride the lawnmower. So I just wanted the halls to be louder, and they're loud, but more words. And so with school age, we're kind of making up a little bit. We feel like we maybe missed some opportunities. So Rachel and I are going back, revisiting, and we are saying, it's not too late. We're going to give you something, but we're going to teach you how to use it. We're going to teach your assistant, we're going to teach your classroom teacher, and then we're going to bring the parents in and make sure.
Well, share a couple of real quick success stories with us, because we're almost out of time, unbelievably. But
Well, preschool, we had a little boy come in, and his mother was just very nervous about even the placement coming in as a 3-year-old. He didn't have very much language, maybe 1 or 2 words. He was very hard to understand. Really, I worked with him a couple of months, and I just saw how much he wanted to say. So we quickly collaborated. We got, they had an existing iPad at home. We worked on a communication app called the LAMP app. It has the ability to give him 5,000 words. I had no idea when I put it in front of him that he was going to put 3 word sentences together. He talks while he plays with his iPad, and the beauty of it is he's still talking. He's still developing the verbal language. He smiles. He doesn't cry. He loves to come to school. He'll grab his iPad as we're walking down the hall because he wants to tell somebody he's going to go take his nap. He's happy. And so this little boy, it started with a lot of nervousness from the family and from him, but he's got some power in his world. That's one preschool story. Do you have any specific school age?
Well, let's talk very briefly about Bonnie, because you're working with Bonnie now, who is 14, 12, 14, 13, and she uses a device now, and you guys work together between the school age and the preschool kids for Bonnie to read to them during circle time, and as she's reading the story, she'll read a sentence, and then you'll pick out a word from the sentence and have your children, who are the preschool age kids, go ahead and pick out what that word is.
And I think we just want the little ones to know that it's really cool to have a talk with a computer. Look at Bonnie. I mean, and Bonnie wants to be a teacher, so it gives her that opportunity to be in the teaching role, and they just go crazy when she comes in with her device to tell a story. I want the technology just to be the norm, and you're not any different, and you're getting your message across just like everybody else. And it's fun. It makes it fun to tell a story.
Okay. Now, what did you feel in your heart whenever you, at the Celebration of Possibilities last March, when Bonnie actually started she got up on stage and actually spoke to a crowd of 420 people?
Absolutely. I think the exciting part of that was that Bonnie's message was totally self-generated. She decided what she wanted to say, up to and including, I want to have pink hair. I want to drink Pepsi. Yeah. Those kind of things that was her important message to the world is, I have a voice, here's about me, these are my dreams for the future. And to see her to be able to express that, this is one student who struggles so much with muscle tone that isolating a hand to even activate her device takes so much energy for her, but she's so committed to doing that because she wants to speak too.
Right, and she's learning to use her words as well. She's speaking pretty well.
And Megan alluded a lot to the things that we're learning, the things that the students are learning. The students are teaching us great things too. And as we research and we talk to the people who have really been in this industry for a while, we're realizing how important the rehearsal is and the opportunities to practice in so many ways. It can't be just during this speech time. It has to be used throughout the day in the home. So that's a major focus for us too, is training families so that it is not a device that's carried around and then left on a shelf in other situations. So we have always believed that using a device does not impair the ability to develop speech. They scaffold each other. It's to understand the structure. And as she talked about the student in preschool who's actually verbalizing while he's using the device, that's exciting. He's actually anticipating, he knows where the icon's going to appear, and there's more of a time lag with the machine than he has in his own brain, which is really exciting for us. Okay. So we've been fascinated with the things we're learning as well.
Okay, awesome. Let's get back a little bit to all the attention that's come to you. You're able to share that then with the rest of the staff, with the parents of the children you're working with. What kind of comments have you been receiving from folks?
Everybody has been very positive and kind, and I just feel tremendous gratitude that we're able to tell our story. I feel a huge responsibility and to truly give these children and these adults their voice, and I want that responsibility. I want it. And I think I will feel like a hero, in 20, 25 years when my career is over and I come visit the OC and everybody's walking around with a device. I don't feel like the work is done. I feel like it's just beginning. And I know when I end my career and I can come in here or go to the school and everybody has a way to communicate, that's when I'll feel like a hero.
I think that people praise Megan to her face, but they also praise her behind her back. And they run to me we have had some turnover with speech language pathologists, and most of it is because this is a very challenging population that we serve. And the vision that we have for our entire school is to arm our students with what they need to be successful in a less restrictive setting. So when Megan has experience in the public schools, in a hospital setting, running her own private practice, in clinics, she has the big picture of community and society. So she knows that if she arms kids now and helps them develop, they can then transition back to their home district school, they can be successful, and the stories she's looking forward to are the ones where she runs into them in the grocery store,
Right.
shopping with their friends and communicating back and forth.
Well, and
That's
you're
success.
always learning, because everything, the whole field, your whole field is always changing.
Always, especially with technology. It is.
And it is the biggest challenge for a speech pathologist in the school. They have so many things to be aware of, disfluency and articulation and language and et cetera, with so many students, that trying to keep up with augmentative communication is a huge challenge. So that's another part of this initiative, is that we offer trainings. We had a fair last year, and so many of the local speech pathologists came because they're hungry for the information and knowing where to get.
Right. And you put that together. You organized. You brought in the reps from all of the different companies. So as Jody said, you had speech pathologists from throughout the county, actually from other counties as well, came in, and parents brought their kids in. They were able to see what was available to them. I know we're almost out of time, but can you very briefly, in about a minute or so, run through the normal process that a kid has to go through to get a device?
Sure.
And you're able to give them the repetition now that they
Right.
weren't able to get.
It's very important that we have these on site in order to teach the kids to use them, because we have to go to great lengths to justify this purchase. We have to prove that we have trialed 3 or more devices, different devices. The paperwork on average is about 10 hours to complete the report, and it is frequently denied by Medicaid or insurance. So then you have to start over. 6 to 8 weeks would be very quick to get a device. So our approach is that we are going to teach the kids, we're going to make sure we're successful, and then we're going to ask for the right device for the child or the adult. And because they have it for 6 or more years, they will not approve another device. So we're sure that this is going to be a success. We're sure of it.
Awesome.
And
Great.
it can take as long as 18 months or more if there are denials.
Right.
But in the meantime, we continue to work. The students continue to grow and develop more expertise. And again, knowing that the fit has to be right, because it's going to be with them for a while.
long time.
It's huge.
Well, listen, if you have any questions about what you heard here, you can give me a call at 652-7220, or give Jody a call. Jody would love to have you come out to Forest Row School
I would
and
love
take
you
a
to see
tour. And you're there Monday through Wednesday
And Friday.
back on Friday. So if you wanted to come out and meet Megan and see some of the things that are going on at Forest Row School, not just in speech pathology, but our entire program, please give us a call. Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And congratulations once again.
Thanks, John.
My hero.
Stop.
Until next month, this is John Bosser for the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities edition of Fairfield Today.
Megan Worthington deserves this Education Hero Award, not only for what she's been doing recently, but for what she's done for many, many years.
She just has such success with helping our kids at Forest Row School who have disabilities and have difficulty speaking to find their voice.
I realized 2 years ago that the halls were really quiet and that we needed to look at communication a little differently. A group of us decided to present our idea to the board that we were going to bring these high-tech devices into the school.
She's kind of been the ox behind this, pushing forward and showing us, all of these different options, and then also training us on it, because if it wasn't for Megan, we wouldn't know how to use these devices, because she's done all the research, she's done all the background information, looking for all this stuff to see what would best suit each child. So she has worked super hard to make sure that every child is getting what they need communication-wise, and then also making sure that staff is properly trained so that we know how to implement it within the classroom.
The way the communication devices work is that there's a child who has trouble speaking. Sometimes you don't know if they're hearing you or if they're understanding what you're saying. And what these communication devices are proving is that kids can choose pictures or choose words if they're able to read and form sentences, and an artificial voice then becomes the voice of that child.
She has opened doors for them to have a voice, to communicate. Her interactions with families have really kind of elicited that support, because it can't just happen at school, it has to happen throughout the child's life.
Bonnie loves working with the preschoolers, and last year she was able to give a speech at the Celebration of Possibilities, and in her speech she stated that she wanted to be a teacher at Forest Rose School. So now she has been given the opportunity, with the help of Megan and Rachel, who's our school age therapist, to go to the preschool classes and use her communication device to read stories and ask questions about those stories to the preschool students. And Bonnie absolutely loves it. She gets so excited she can hardly contain herself. She can hardly calm down enough to be able to use her communication device.
She's extremely dedicated to her job and just as dedicated to her profession. She's always trying to find new ways to help her students. And now she's also working with adults in our program, so she's extending that even further. And the interesting thing is that she is able to find resources and find ways to bring new devices into the school so that the families can learn more about how their child may be able to benefit from a communication device.
Megan has an attitude of service. She has always been quietly behind the scenes. I think we tend to think of a hero as leading the charge. Megan does that, but within the function of a group.
Helping these students find their voice at such a young age is really going to translate into making them successful adults.
Congratulations, Megan. You deserve this. You are awesome, amazing, wonderful.
Thank you, Miss Megan, for helping me find my voice.
Interface Video presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fair Hope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, the Frankie Smith Funeral Home, and Lancaster Fairfield Community Action Recycling and Litter Prevention.